Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the lounge. It's a wonderful Wednesday evening. I hope you guys are nice and warm. I sure am. It's 32 degrees down here in Argentina. Currently, it's been sitting around 28 right now. I'm going to bring Stefanos. Welcome to the show. Let's see what Stefanos got to say. What's going on?
Do I sound like the chipmunks or am I normal?
You sound normal for a change.
Holy smokes, right on. Lots going on, Ed. Lots. I don't
Sorry
know.
about the bad hair. It's one of those humid days.
Lucky. It's only minus 13 here. Of course, the fake weather has been going on saying it's minus 20 and whatever. So, it's 13. Ugh.
Hey, have they been spraying like chemtrails at all lately, or what?
Probably, but I don't pay attention. I know what's going on. I've seen so much of it, reported so much of it, and whatever. It's ridiculous. I've brought it to the attention of our politicians, and they were trying to get our support, but we didn't give it because they didn't. Well, they didn't deny it, but they didn't want to do anything about it. So, hell with them. You and lackeys.
Down here in Argentina, been down here for a couple weeks. One day it was cloudy. Other than that, clear blue skies most of the time. Unbelievable. I haven't seen these kind of clear blue skies since I was a kid.
Yeah, when I was in Greece, that's how it was there too. All blue sky every single day. I think once in one town there at the foot of Mount Olympus, it was a little bit cloudy and it actually rained. But other than that, it's always deep blue sky. Is nice out there.
And people are saying, oh, there's not many planes. Really? Buenos Aires is a huge, huge city. There's a plane taking off from Newbury Field, which is about 4 miles from where I am. Every 2 minutes, another giant plane takes off. So there's a lot of planes in the air. Not one contrail, not one chemtrail, nothing. Put that in your
Pipe and smoke it.
well, actually, I haven't seen anyone smoking a pipe either, but no chemtrails down here. It's amazing. Hardly ever rains.
Once I had spotted a chemtrail once, and I had zoomed right in with my telephoto lens because it was way up there, and then you can zoom in on the photo after when you're reviewing it. And I zoomed right in. You can clearly see Delta Air was spraying it. That was one of their airlines that were spraying. So they must lease them out or something with the companies. Maybe they have contracts.
Well, a lot of aircraft are held by leases. Large capital companies will buy these planes and they'll lease them out to the airlines. It makes more stable costs for the airlines, and they don't have the upfront capital expenditures. So they don't have to pay out of pocket. They don't have to go on the books for having huge loans. So yeah, leasing works for some of them. Anyways, what's your take on Trump? Apparently, he made it. He's the new commander in chief. Did you watch any of the ceremonies?
I sure did. And hey, the man's a legend. What can I say? He's awesome. He's I think he's done something like 1,500 pardons so far. He got the J6 people. He's pardoned them. Libertarian people. I posted that up there. Uh, he's pardoned them. They were jailed because they were building a platform. Go figure that one out. And a double life sentence. So, as we're seeing that's happening in Canada, these socialism garbage. It's all about suppressing free speech, silencing everyone. And like I say, socialism is the worst of communism and fascism rolled up into one. And we're witnessing it.
Well, down here they call socialists or corrupt political people peronistas. So Peron was the prime minister for many, many years. Tyrant, they're glad to see him go. I don't know how the hell Milei got in if the system was so corrupt. But they've been cutting government jobs for the past year. They've knocked their debt down by half. The federal debt that the country owes, which has in turn caused their peso to strengthen. 5 years ago, if you would have gone to any neighboring country, actually any country, you would try to give them an Argentino peso, they'd say that's toilet paper. I don't want it. Now, down here, it's almost as they consider it to be like US dollars. People don't care. US dollars or Argentinian pesos, they don't care. Same shit now.
Yeah, I think they're going to
A lot.
transition. I think they're going to transition to the U.S. dollar, as a matter of fact. And actually, they eliminated the debt uh, about a month ago, half a month ago to a month ago. So they've done amazing stuff, and government, over half of government was gone. Because, Ed, bottom line is the government's the useless eaters, not the people as the government view us as being the useless eaters. They're the useless eaters. And this is where all the money goes, growing big government, oppressing people, stripping them of rights, jailing them. This is what government has become. And that's what government is. From the beginning of time, they've done this. This is why we have a constitution, and that's the checks and balances that keep them in their place.
Yeah. I'm just looking here in the stream. We're not getting any comments from YouTube, Twitch, X, or anyone. I'm just wondering if our people in the background can help us out with that. We got at least 38 people watching, so I know people are tuning in. Someone's got to be posting something. Same thing as the last time we did this. So bear with us, people. We're going to get this all sorted out one of these days. We'll get this figured out so we get some more participation from our audience. I'm sure there's people yelling and screaming at us, and maybe there's people going, who knows what's going on. Wish you could see what the chat's doing.
I know at least one communist that's yelling at me.
Really? Who's that?
Oh, I won't say their name. I don't want to embarrass them, but yeah, they're with the Socialist Party. They want it, and people will never wake up. But unfortunately, that's how they are. And apparently, I know nothing about politics, so that's a good thing. That means I'm not a what do they call that? A trained politician, trained puppet. I'm not a puppet. What can I say? But I am a politician, just not an elected one.
I'm all alone here, Ed and Stefanos from Brenda. So we are getting, we got our first comment from YouTube. Awesome. So we're going to pull the show together slowly, people. We're going to be bringing you better guests, better interviews. Still cutting our teeth on this one. As you know, Kevin is busy as hell helping people out with tax issues, and he's trying to stay out of the political scene. He's just so busy with his customers. He's overwhelmed right now. And I get rid of audits and auditors. They have, I went down too quick. Anyways, book your consultation today at kevinjjohnson.com. If you guys have tax issues, I don't think he charges much for the initial consultation, and he'll tell you if he can do something for you or not. And that's from our sponsor, Kevin.
So shall we? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And how do we get a hold of Kevin? Very good question. I think you can email him somewhere. kevinjjohnson.com. That's where you want to get a hold of him if you got tax issues. All right, enough of the commercials. Let's get down to the meat and gravy. Back to Trump. My take on it is these 25% tariffs. I don't think he's going to put them in, but it's sure scared the hell out of the Mexicans, the Canadians. I think he's just using it as a negotiating tool. And we've got premiers going down. Danielle Smith, she's stepping away from the rest of the provincial premiers, who are quite powerful when it comes to economic things. Will they do anything? Well, we'll find out. You think he's going to send any of the people that crossed illegally back? Or do you think it's even possible? 10 million people to go back?
Remember, he'd done a great job with ICE, and he was getting them all back there as much as they could catch. He was securing the borders, so he's doing it right. Now, will he send them over here or Mexico is a whole other different bowl of wax, and big problem here. But I'll tell you a little bit on the tariff stuff. Canada already has an unfair advantage on the US on that. I've been digging into quite a bit of stuff, which the media has been keeping quiet. And of course, they're going to Trump, rah, 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 Trump, the bad man, orange man bad, But have you ever heard of a tax called DTS or DST? I'm sorry. No,
No.
no, amazing, eh? So Canada threw a DST tax on digital services on states and foreign countries all over the world at some, I think it was something like 20 something percent. Don't quote me on that, but it was around there. And it's been generating revenue of about $1 billion in 1 year, in the first year. And then they took it one step further and nailed their Canadian. So this is just for the tech giants, the states that have the most tech and countries that have the most tech. And he nails our Canadian businesses with this tax, but at 3%. So he generated some 20 million off of them. So stealing money, as I always say, taxation is theft. Make no mistake about it, because what did they do to earn any of your hard work and your money from your hard work and your ideas? Nothing. So, um, so Trump is pushing back. That's one of the reasons why he wants to um, uh, push back here and put tariffs on. But he's not going to throw it all on in one slap. Now, this DTS or DST tax has been going on for quite some time. There's a battle been raging here, and not only Canadians, but every other foreign country, namely the US, has been pushing back against this when Biden was in, believe it or not. And again, all trying to silence, all trying to rape everybody of their money for the useless eaters called the government that provide us no service whatsoever. And remember, tax is for a service. It's not for a tax because you create something out of tech. No, it's government provided services. So these are taxation without representation. They don't want to go to the what was that free trade bill, the U.S. MCA or something like that. Um, the trade bill Trump had made before, Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. So through that agreement, there's a panel that they can go through to nail Canada, and the first step was done with Biden, and then Biden didn't follow through with it. Probably dementia and all the other problems he's got, and he left office, and he left it at that. So I think Trump is going to deal with it by tariffs, because why wouldn't you? You don't want to wait a year-long process and while you're getting raped of all your money. So he's going to hit back, and that's what they're doing. Go ahead, and then we'll go jump on some more of this garbage.
Okay, well, here's my take on tariffs. So what a tariff is, tell me if I got this right. So if I'm living in the States and Trump puts on a 25% tariff on, say, softwood lumber, what that means is when that 2x4 comes across the border from Canada to the US, instead of coming across at $2, which is not the real price, it's going to cost the Americans $2.50, correct?
Yeah, they're basically just stealing money for absolutely no reason because they have no right to it. Like, actually, that you said about the lumber. You remember the redwood, BC redwood? That's a real high sought after lumber wood, and the U.S. was not paying anything on it. There were tariffs on it, but they wouldn't pay any. And the U.S. Canada took the U.S. to court on it. I think they owed 50 million. I can't remember. Somewhere's around there. You'd have to look it up. But Canada won, and the U.S. simply said, "We're not going to pay it. What are you going to do about it?" And that was that for that. So you got to remember,
We can send our gay army after him.
They're going to throw
That's what they
tampons
do.
at them and maybe squirt them with tomato juice, I guess.
No, beat them over the head with those gay pride flags. I think that's the only way we really have to defend ourselves. If China comes in and invades, what do we got? We got no military, but you can probably import some gay pride flags from China and then use that for self-defense, stop an invading army.
China production. There you go. Everything's Chinese nowadays. Why the hell not? We'll get it at a cheap rate.
So I was talking to a Russian the other day, and he said this was in a park when I was taking Bubba around the park. A lot of dogs here in Argentina. Like people that are crazy about their dogs here. They're real animal lovers. Anyways, I was talking to a guy. He was from Russia. He's lived 6 months here, 6 months in Russia. Obviously, come down here for the winter. And he says because of the tariffs, they were able to get the new iPhone 16 for $900 in Russia proper because they're importing it from one of the countries in the down there by Saudi Arabia. I don't know if it's the Emirates. I should have written it down, but it's one of those countries because they bring it in with no tariffs. So they're able to get the iPhone 16 or 17 or whatever the new one is quicker than anyone else in the world for a lower price than anyone else because of the tariffs. So what the tariffs have done to the Russian economy, at first it crashed a little bit, but then it started picking up because it started doing all these side deals, selling oil to India, directly to China, bypassing the petrodollar, which is the US dollar. And this is what's caused the US dollar a little bit of a slump, per se. Last year, it pulled back a bit. But now Trump is in power. We see it getting stronger because it is still the world reserve currency. How much longer that lasts is yet to be seen. I got a feeling they're just going to keep it alive until Klaus Schwab does a great reset. That's my take on it. You probably got a different idea on this.
Sure, don't put too much stock into Schwab and Company. Remember, it's our country. They might be, having traders in Parliament pushing their policies, which is completely illegal. So, but I don't think they carry that weight. They're only a little tiny NGO, basically. Who the real threat to the world is the United Nations. That's who is the real threat. That's who's pushing everything. That's who's getting our politicians to import their policies and making them into Canadian laws. And that's the one. And who was it that brought in the digital currency into Canada? Conservative. So the Conservatives are the one that brought this forward to push it in here, the digital currency, not garbage. When Ford was elected, he was saying we're going to have the digital wallet ready for January of that year he was elected. And of course, he couldn't do it because they had it on the federal level. The other conservatives, they were bringing it in. Obviously, he would have known about it. And obviously, the provincial government conservatives do not have authority on that kind of stuff. That's federal. So these are the kind of clowns we have elected in office. They don't even know what their jurisdiction is. That's why every time the baker Ford and his cheesecake make a comment, I die laughing because look what he's saying. He's gonna do stuff to Trump. He can't do squat to Trump. All the province can do, as far as the U.S. goes, is try to penalize and raise a price or something to whatever state they are transferring whatever resource. So how about Ontario Hydro? That's a great example. And you know what? I think Ford should be accountable for what they've been doing because nobody knows this. All this feed-in garbage, solar panels on your roofs that are not off-grid. They just feed back into the system. So what that does is actually raise our hydro rates. So stop doing that, people, because They Ontario produces far too much power. We can't use it. We have so much power. It's ridiculous. Now, what they should be doing is lowering our rates because we have that kind of power. But they're not, because they're too busy giving it to Quebec and Buffalo and all these other states at a massive discount. Remember that ice storm we had a few years back? Um, we had all this power, didn't know what to do with it, so they gave it to Buffalo.
I think we
And
have to pay to get rid of it, didn't we?
oh, it gets better. They gave it to Buffalo. I think it was at 1 cent a kilowatt hour. Well, it's the people in Ontario who pay the loss. So, for example, if it's 35 cents a kilowatt hour, normally, that's not the rate though. I'm just an example. They sell it to them at 1 kilowatt hour. We have to now pay for the loss at 34 cents a kilowatt hour. So we end up paying the loss. Why would we pay the loss? That makes no sense whatsoever. And this is the kind of idiots we have in office that are, as I say, raping us at the wallet. Taxation's theft. What they're doing is theft. That's a blatant theft. Um, but resources are owned by the people. So maybe the politicians should be paying the loss, and only the politicians.
So let's take a little walk back in history. Ontario used to have what was called the Golden Horseshoe. We had heavy industry. We had two steel mills in Hamilton. We had a steel mill in Sault Ste. Marie. Um, Heavy users of coal, coke. I don't know if we had aluminum smelting in Ontario. We had a lot of manufacturing. And back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I don't know. Yeah, actually in the 70s, we still had a lot of things were being produced. And slowly, we lost our manufacturing base. Why? They started raising the price of hydro. Companies flocked to produce parts and manufacture goods. Washing machines aren't even made in Ontario anymore. Those were closed back in the 80s, the last washing machine plant. Okay, so they weren't the greatest high-tech jobs, but still, you got people that got to produce the steel, they got to produce the motors, they got to produce the tubs, they got to injection mold the handles, they got to produce the hinges, even the feet. There's all kinds of stamping that has to be done. All kinds of tool makers are kept in business, and you had a whole bunch of stamping. Whole bunch of labor and time and effort goes into producing goods. Well, now this is all being made in China. We've lost that edge here in Canada. And I can put it squarely on two things: free trade. The second thing is losing our competitive advantage. Now, if you're going to be in business and you're competing in the manufacturing business, I know I had a CNC machine shop for a while. We had to differentiate ourselves from the other people, our competitors. So how could we compete? We had the newest equipment. My partner was very skilled at what he was doing, so he was able to crank these parts out, get them programmed, and we could do it faster than someone could do it by hand. And these were low-run parts. We did quite well in those 2.5 years that we were in business. Business does get sold after a while. What was our competitive advantage? Quite frankly, me with the gift of the gab, that I was able to encourage people that we can turn these parts around in a matter of days instead of weeks. And there's also a trust factor because we checked every part before it went out the door to make sure that they didn't have to retool it or rework it, that they were getting a good product. And so the turnaround and the precision that we're able to offer, that was our competitive advantage. What has happened in Ontario? The price of hydro has gone up. I think I'm paying 15 cents a kilowatt. Back in the 80s, they would, hydro was still cheap, and they said it was going to get even cheaper because we built nuclear plants. We had Pickering, we had Chalk Lake, which is on the Ottawa River. We had Darlington, which is down by just past Bowmanville. And then there's the Bruce up on the Bruce Peninsula. So we were hoping to keep our competitive advantage by having cheap power, and it was nuclear power that was supposed to provide that. Didn't work out that way though. So then we bring in the green energy, which is these solar panels, and they're to make that economical. We're getting these solar panels built in China, bringing them over here, Chinese electronics, mounting them on our roofs, whatever. And the initial buy-in pay-in was about 80.5 cents back in the early days if you were under 10 kilowatts. So you can put power into the grid when the sun is shining and get a payback of 80 cents. Now, back then they did it on the cost of what it would cost to install that. The average installation was $40,000 to $50,000 for 10 kilowatts. It could have been as high as 80,000. But anyways, they did the dollar averaging and they said, yep, we're going to pay people 80.5 cents a kilowatt to put solar on the roof, the system, the inverters, upgrade the electrical, hook it up into the grid, put the metering on. And some people did it, and they're doing okay right now, as long as the solar panels haven't failed, as long as they haven't lost an inverter. I know someone, he put his own installation, got it all approved, and he got his money back after 3 years. So he's making profit, and they're locked in for 20 years to pay him 80.5 cents a kilowatt. So he makes all his money in the summer. He gets diddly squat in the winter.
Yeah,
which is when you need the power.
yeah, but that doesn't work out that way. It's nowhere near that high. Government was subsidizing farms to put these panels in at some 200 or 210,000. It makes garbage power. It's no good. It's useless. They're feeding into the grid garbage. You still get a hydro bill at the end of the day. So actually, I know someone right now who just got quite the large size system put in, and they still get a bill they have to pay the hydro company. So they're paying next to nothing. You're now generating power for them for free, because when it turns around and we're paying the loss, you're not saving nothing. You're never saving anything. You're paying. That's the bottom line. And the more we generate, the more we pay. That's the problem.
So here's the thing. Hang on though. If you're getting 80.5 cents a kilowatt for power that you're producing, but we're only paying, like me, I don't produce any, I just use hydro. Why do I have to pay 15 cents a kilowatt during peak hours? Whereas before I was paying less than 3 cents a kilowatt. And if you're a large manufacturing business and you're using a lot of hydro, you're taking a heavy hit. Why the hell would you keep your manufacturing in Ontario when you can go across the border, say to Buffalo, and get it, say, 6 cents a kilowatt? You got to be a little bit stupid to do business in Ontario. And this is why we got problems with poverty. This is why there's so much competition for these low-paying jobs that are left. It's only service industry. And they said, hey, yeah, we're going to keep a service industry business going, a service economy. Really? Without manufacturing. Okay, who's the bonehead that figured this one out? Who's the one that tried to sell this one to us? Somebody got paid off. And I can't help but think that, you know, those big windmills that kill birds all the time and get in the way of planes? They're up there 5, 6, 7, 800 feet in the air. Those things will never produce the power that it took to create them. So say one of these things cost $1 million to put up one of these towers. By the time it dies, it will have never produced $1 million worth of power, even with inflation. So it's a great make work, but nobody benefits. Who benefits? A few rich guys that set up these scams, a few government workers get paid off to put these programs into place. And at the end of the day, whose pocket's a little bit lighter? Mine and yours. Thank you, government, for being an idiot. But we're saving the planet. Bullshit.
So it's just a Ponzi scheme, Ed. Down here, there was a 77 wind turbine project that went up. It was the Enermax, I can't remember. Anyways, these things are built in Germany. They're brought from Germany here. And how it works is the teachers union, the teachers fund. They owned the Blue Jays. I don't know if they still do or not. They owned the Maple Leafs. I think they sold them off. So, these guys have got their hands in everything. They got their own insurance companies, got everything. So what they do is they approach Germany to the manufacturer and tell them, come down, do a wind project down here. But the kickback, there's always a kickback, Ed. There's always some kind of payoff going on somewhere. And that is teachers tell the company, come down, everything. The only catch is you have to use our insurance companies for your project. You see, there's the kickback. So not only that, but it's a massive land fraud because when it goes on the property, it devalues the property. They put, let's see, so for each turbine that goes up, I don't know what it is now, but back at the time, the government was subsidizing $10 million per turbine. Now listen to this scam. And the taxpayer, you and I, and everyone else is on the hook for this. So when this project first came into effect, it was Rankin who brought it in and got all the preliminary work done. And then Rankin sold it to another company. So Rankin collected his $10 million per turbine without one turbine going up, and then turn around and sell the project to the next place that buys it. They get 10 million per turbine, and there's no turbine up yet. Now, I think it wasn't until it was sold a third time that the turbines actually went up, and they collected $10 million. So there's $30 million per turbine in 3 sales without a turbine going up. So 30 million times 77, you do the math, and all of us are paying for that because it's subsidized by the government. And then in the end, they ended up selling it off to the Grand River Corporation. So the Six Nations of the Grand River Corporation, that's who it was. That's who
like 2.2 billion.
And then, so before that, they had the Bank of Japan, I believe it was, who had put a lien on all these properties that each turbine went up on for $30 million. So how that is a land fraud right there, because how can you put a lien on a property that's only worth $150,000, $200,000 and go throw a $30 million lien on it? One of the catches of the contracts, because they were trying to get us to get into it, and so they had sent us a contract, and it was like a 42, 43 page contract. At the end of the contract, it said at the end of the 20 or 25 year term, or whatever it was, if you did not re-sign up with them, they would assume your property. So now you've just lost your property. So you don't own it no more if you don't re-sign with them. And the wind turbine companies go on your deed, and they go on the deed even before the bank if you have a mortgage on it. So what the Ontario's baker, Doug Ford, cheeseman, when he got in office, he said he was going to get rid of the green energy contracts. He was going to do this, that, the other thing. So he got rid of the Green Energy Act that he had. But you see, sneaky prick, all right? He did not get rid of the actual act. He kept that act, even though he repealed the act. What he done was he amended several other acts, and he put each section of that Green Energy Act into different acts, like the Electricity Act and all these different other acts. So that act is alive and well just through several other different pieces of legislation that was created. So This is how they hide shit. They lie to you. They deceive you exactly like that. And he's just a straight up liar. He's a big fat liar. And I don't know how the hell he ended up getting a majority after destroying all the business. But you're right, Ed. You can't do business when you're paying crazy prices for gas and hydro and everything else. Business leaves right away. They go to another country. They go somewhere else where they're not going to pay that. So it's our own politicians destroying our own economy. That's the whole goal for the Great Reset. But they're having a tough time doing it because Canada has such a great economy. We're not dependent on the economy such as the US is. Canada's dependent on, you know, exports and stuff. We didn't really used to import anything because we have everything here. This is Canada's strong point. This is why we were doing so good. So if we raise prices like crazy, chase business out, who's gonna extract anything from the ground, any of our resources to export out? We won't have any. So what do? They start selling our resources to countries like China, get China to come in here, they buy it from us, then they extract it at our expense. They don't even pay anything to extract it, we pay for it. Then they export it out to their country just to have us re-import it in. And we're paying the whole time. We're paying everything. When Patrick Brown was in office, this is something you'll always hear the conservatives going on about, the PC party, the Progressive Communist Party, as I like to call them. They sit there. When Brown was in office, he wanted to get the resources out of the Ring of Fire. And Doug Ford, as of late, you'll hear him speaking about the Ring of Fire. So this is something they always use. But with Patrick Brown, the plan was China to come in, extract the resources from the Ring of Fire. We'll pay for it. I knew the whole thing. He told me his whole plan that he had it, which makes no freaking sense because we're getting rid of all of our business that we have here. Any companies, they're going to leave. And we're screwing our own people for their money, which we don't have any more to give. And that's what everybody should be telling our governments right now. Sorry, you're asking us too much. You know, we don't have enough. You're asking us too much to give. That same line the turd used on, who was it, the military, the vets? It's crazy.
So, did you ever hear the name George Smitherman?
Yes.
Do you know what George's ties are with the giant wind generating plants down in, I think it's close to Sarnia?
No.
So he sits on the board of one of these, I think it's a Korean company. They got some sweet deal where they put up contracts for like 100 or 200 windmills. Don't quote me on this, but it's a lot of windmills. And he's got a sweetheart deal where he just sits on the board and collects a check. So people are saying, well, no, there's no corruption in Canadian politics. Really? You know nothing about generating hydro. And yet you get a nice big fat paycheck every month for doing what? Signing on that dotted line, awarding that contract. How is this illegal?
So the project down in West Lincoln, this is the one I'm speaking of. If you go through the West Lincoln minutes of meetings, you can find it. You're gonna have to. It's old now. It's going way back to 2015 or so, somewhere around there, maybe a little sooner. But you'll see one of the meetings. They put a counselor in, and that counselor was supposed to be a committee on there and supposed to be the liaison between the turbine company and the town. Well, that puts a direct conflict there. You're automatically in a conflict of interest. And then he was to be paid by the turbine company from doing this. So, but they couldn't pay him by check. They couldn't pay him through the municipality for doing it, or it'd be a conflict of interest. So they came out with the harebrained idea that they will simply pay him by putting it on his credit card. Why do I mention this? Because I know some scammers out there. One of the things they do is, since they can't carry all this money across the border, they pile all this laundered money or stolen money or scam money, whatever. This is one of the ways they do it. And they pay it on their credit card. So, you now have a credit on your credit card. And then they go to Belize and they use their credit card at a bank machine, and they pull all sorts of money out, all this stolen money, and they just have a good time down in Belize. So this is why all the conservatives, liberals, and everything in the provincial and federal governments have all their money, all their laundered money in Belize. And that came out in those, what was it, the Panama Papers? Something like that. That all came out there. All these politicians we have all been taking their laundered money and shipping it offshore where it can't be touched. So even if they get arrested, if they, by some miracle, do a couple of years' time, who cares? They're millionaires when they come out. It doesn't matter to them. So it's worth it. That's how they do it. These things is what they're doing.
So back to George Smitherman. He's sitting on the board of directors somehow, or he's got some position with this Korean company with these windmills, making steady money for doing absolutely squat. How do we go after these kind of guys?
You have to be able to make the connection where the kickbacks are. And a good example is all these municipal speed cameras that have been going up. The company who has done it, I believe they're called Redpath, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure 100%, but I believe that's what it was called. If you look into this company, you'll see there's massive kickbacks to politicians. So you got to go through Freedom of Information's, see the communications in there, see what kind of stuff was done, and find it. In the States, they've done jail time several times, counselors and the company representatives, because they're giving them kickbacks for letting them put these cameras up. And that may be, well, the same thing that's going on down here now in Ontario with this company. It's a dirty, corrupt company like you wouldn't believe. And it's all out there. Everybody can see it. Just Google that company and you'll see all these charges. And that's what they're doing. People are just ignorant to it. They don't know. I shouldn't say ignorant. They just don't know. So if you start looking and digging into these companies, you'll see the absolute corruption and kickbacks that goes on between politicians in these huge companies. These are multinational corporations, okay? So they're around the world. So, and this is how they do business, and it's criminal activity. That's bottom line.
Meanwhile, me and you get to pay crazy hydro bills. And it does add up after a while, folks. Like if you count your nickels and dimes at the end of the year, you pay an extra $300-400 a month for hydro. Now, how about if you're renting? If you have to rent the place, the hydro is included in your rent. Someone's got to pay that hydro bill, and it's a landlord. So landlords don't have a choice but to raise the rent. So, and then another thing I've noticed with these tribunals, rent review tribunals, rents were going sky high last year. I think they've started to pull back a little bit. Rents are still quite high in the GTA. I know this for a fact. Very high. There's a lot less rental units. The Chinese have bought up a lot of houses just to park their money offshore. They're empty. And the governments will say, yeah, well, let's bring a empty house tax. Well, it never really happens. It never really works. Who's going to enforce it? So these properties sit empty. And at the end of the day, if you're stuck renting, you're going to pay higher and higher rents as the days go on.
And
So
then just before you go, not to mention having an empty house tax or owning more than one house, that's illegal. period. That's private property. And municipalities, it's right in the Municipal Act, they cannot create a tax. So they can't create a tax for an empty house. And it's private property. It's very clear in the legislation. It says it's interest, it's properties. So they don't own your property. So they can't do these things. But what absolutely freaking stuns me to death is nobody's challenged these bylaws. No one's challenged them. So you're eroding your private property rights. You're eroding all your rights away, no matter what it is. Absolutely stuns me that no one does anything. It's just crazy.
I think what holds a lot of people back is the fact that if I say I were to go and challenge the government or sue the government's got endless resources. So I got to have pretty deep pockets myself if I want to go after the government. And I got to take a stand. Now, you get a judge that doesn't see things my way or the right way, and they bring a judgment down against me. I could be stuck with legal bills, 3, 4, maybe $500,000.
Yeah, but
I'm
you
on
can
the hook for
appeal.
that.
You can appeal. You ain't gonna go $500,000. That wouldn't be that costly. But you can appeal that. So you're not stuck there. And the problem is if you sit back and wait for someone else to do it, or you don't have the funds to do it, then what happens? 10 or 15 years down the road later, you've now lost probably over half of your rights at that point until you're in complete slavery, period. You're already a slave nowadays. They take what, over half of your paycheck goes to taxes before you even see any money in your pocket from working, never mind anything else. So if this stuff doesn't get challenged, I say it and I'll say it again, we're our own worst enemies by not taking action, and that's a problem.
So you're encouraging people to go after the government when they step out of line.
Oh, you have to. It's absolutely have to. And you know what? If money's an issue, fundraise. People should be backing everybody. You know, if you do the math, even so, these donations to them doesn't have to be $10,000. $10, $10. Get 10,000 people at $10. How much money you got?
100,000.
There you go, right there. And it's very cheap when you all do it together.
So have you been watching what's happened to Pat King?
No, I heard that he was supposed to go for sentencing on the 16th, and then they postponed it for a week, I believe it was. So what is it going to be, the 23rd or something that he goes back?
Yeah, I think he was found guilty of mischief, and then the Crown was arguing to give him 10 years. For what?
Well, that would be obviously appealed on the grounds of cruel and unusual punishment. That's like a crazy amount of jail time. And what's even more insane is that the government was found doing this crap illegal. And there was another ruling that says they are within their constitutional right to protest. So this is what, either they all got shit lawyers or the lawyers are not doing the research on the cases or something. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know.
Well, maybe you got to dig into it. And I don't know. We got to encourage Pat King to go and appeal his guilty conviction. I guess that's the next step for him.
Yeah,
But
well, he's got to get sentenced first, and then he can bring the appeal. So we don't know what the appeals or what the sentencing is going to be. So it's going to be up to the judge. But I'm done telling people what to do. It's just a waste of my breath, a waste of my time. If some people want to act, then okay, I'm there. If people don't want to act, well, don't waste my time. That's it.
right on. Back to Trump. Will your buddy not be able to buy Bud Light in Canada if Ford gets his way?
Oh yeah, well, Ford, you know what? He just wants. He's closed down 30,000 beer stores, and he just wants to get American beer out, is what I believe. And I think he just wants to do that because he closed all those beer stores during the scamdemic, and uh, they've lost revenue. They've lost a crap load of revenue. So I think he'll want to take them, try to ban them out of sorry, did I say the LCBO? I meant the beer store. They'll want to get that beer out of there, so he can have Ontario grab all the profit. But does anybody really drink American beer? Like, I remember making fun of that stuff because it's really low in alcohol, unless they've changed that by now. But it was like drinking water, so it's pretty useless to begin with.
Last time I checked or looked into it, I believe the beer store, the chain, the beer store, was owned by either Unibrew or the same people that own. There's a big, huge brewery. Who are the people that own Sapporo?
I don't know, but their beer really sucks.
Well, it was one of those multinationals that owned the beer store, so it wasn't owned by the province. It was actually privately owned, and it's changed hands a few times. Who owns it now? I don't know. Something to look into.
Well, it's got to be the province in there. Maybe they're doing a combination with them. Um, so that could be it, because Ford wouldn't have the power to close down 30,000 because they're losing money apparently. But I think I think we're coming near the end of our time, are we not?
Yep. Final comments. Go ahead. I want to talk about Mark Carney briefly.
I want us to, I'm watching the Trump derangement syndrome going crazy in Canada. It's ridiculous. The guy's done amazing things, got them out of the World Health Organization. He's doing all this stuff on executive order, reversing everything, got rid of DEI hiring, got rid of the LBJ's bill from 1965. He got rid of that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff the media is not even talking about that he's done. And, he's bringing sanity and normalcy back into a country to make it productive, unlike Canada, where it's destructive, pathetic.
So as we know, that there's many agendas coming down the agenda 2030, 2021. Digital currency, guys. Why is Mark Carney suddenly announcing he's going to be Prime Minister of Canada? He's running for the leadership. He really has not been painted as a bad person yet, but you can bet your bottom dollar that he will be the next Prime Minister of Canada before the election is called. That's what I see happening. That's the way I see it set up. This proroguing of Parliament, before we even hear if it's illegal or not, we're looking at March. By then, Mark Carney should be established as the new leader of the Liberal Party. And once he comes in, he's got 4 or 5 months. This happened before with Kim Campbell. This has happened before. What are you laughing at? Kim Campbell was Prime Minister of Canada for
Kim
6 months.
Campbell sucked. She was a non-confidence and out like, what was it, a week? That's slight exaggeration, but it might as well have been ridiculous.
No, she was in power for a while. Canada's first lady Prime Minister.
Not long at all. It was very short and out.
And who was that finance minister that became Prime Minister for a while without being elected? After Pierre Trudeau.
I don't know, but you can thank Bob Rae of the NDP for screwing us all with insurance companies.
Yeah, well, Kevin's had some good interviews with Bob Rae. And I remember doing that interview going like this, pointing the camera down at him. He was not happy. Anyways, guys, we're going to cut the show off. Next week, what do you want to talk about? Who are we bringing in? Some guests? Guys, send us your comments. If you don't like the show, or if you like the show, whatever you want us to bring in. If you got some guests we should bring in, send those suggestions to freedomreport.ca, or if we can get Kevin's email up again, kevinjjohnson.com. Put the comments in there, and we'll see if we can custom tune something for your show. See you next Wednesday, guys. Reporting from Argentina. I'll be getting you some videos. Stefanos is in the nice, balmy St. Catharines area. Was it minus 150 right now?
13.
All right, minus 13. Later.